All right. Hey, Alan.
Hey, how you doing, Anthony?
Good. How are you?
I'm well today, thank you.
Good. So I just wanted to basically call you and talk to you about something. I noticed in you always have a quote that you say, consciousness is the only game worth playing. I've always wanted to ask you this, but what does that mean?
Well, when you think of life, or when I think of life, I think of what do I like to do, and I like to experiment with consciousness. I like to go beyond the boundaries of what most people call average or normal, because that's what brings me joy. So I've been experimenting my whole life with consciousness and its aspects. And I started in, geez, late high school, so a long time.
Well, before I forget, what is I mean, you say you started in high school. What was your kind of journey like? Kind of like a bird's eye view that to get you to where you are or
Well,
how you're being.
I listened to my teachers and I said, nah, something's missing.
Yeah.
And I listened to my friends and they were, I mean, I was into sports and stuff too. But I wasn't rah rah. It was just fun to move rather
Yeah,
than achieve a win or whatever,
exactly.
Um, but so I just started to, the one thing I could find that was alternative at the time was hypnotherapy.
Right.
So I started reading about hypnosis and that, and then I started finding out a little bit about yoga, and I started looking for esoteric books like what I ran across was called the Masters of the Far East. There were seven books in the set,
Yeah.
and it was written in the 20s, and it was pretty astounding stuff, and it just got me curious. And then when I left high school, I met some people in college that could like see auras and that. And I thought, well, that must be unusual,
Hmm.
because I met two people in about 6 months that could see auras and never had met anybody before in my life for,
Right.
all those years. And I asked them what it was like. And they says, oh, well, it's this, but I don't really understand it. It just happens. It's there.
Right.
And so I started meditating on the idea of being able to see auras. And after a couple of years, I started to be able to see auras. And
Right.
I didn't know what they meant either, but it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I just, then I started getting into Tai Chi and yoga and Qigong much more deeply and
Yeah.
experimenting with all the different aspects that are listed. I tried karate for a few years. I enjoyed it, but
Hmm.
kind of hard on the body.
Right.
Um, and on and on. And then I just found that I tried the drug scene for a few years because it was the '60s,
Right.
and I found that to be pretty much a dead end because you didn't actually get someplace that you could maintain. You could
Yeah.
only have flashes of
Right.
insight through.
Right.
So I that took me deeper into meditation, not the classic meditation because I found that kind of boring actually,
Yeah.
but just experimenting with consciousness, the way the mind works,
Yeah.
repeating a tone, what it does, and
Hmm.
going with it and just letting it take me,
Right.
not trying to control the outcome.
Hmm.
And neat things started to happen. Met neat people, life evolved, and here we are today, still experimenting. But I ended up with the Wonder Method as a model
Yeah.
to enter deeper into consciousness. It it works on healing.
Hmm.
You can use it for healing the physical form. I use it mostly for unwinding emotional upset because I find that almost every physical problem is really an emotional resistance, like
Right.
something I don't want to feel or feel confused by or angry at or fearful of.
Right.
And as I do that, more and more life becomes a cruise. And the mind gets super quiet, and all the spiritual things that my whole life had been about
Hmm.
and I'd tried to achieve
Yeah.
were simply there um, because I was no longer standing in my own way. And
Right.
so I've continued in that direction because it's the best thing I've ever found. And I mean, this is 50 years on the journey,
Yeah.
it's pretty surprising.
Right. Well, I just wanted to, since we're on the topic of consciousness, you said something, how your whole world kind of unwinds. Would you say the whole world is nothing but consciousness? I've heard that said before, but what's your take on that? That the world is nothing out there but your consciousness, including your physical body. And you said as you unwind that, your physical body can actually change. But aside from the physical body, is everything consciousness? And what's your like definition of
Well,
consciousness?
I'm gonna give a couple of comments on that, and then I'll
Okay.
answer the question. One, yes, everything is consciousness. However, a lot of it's unconscious consciousness. In other
Right.
words, you're just sort of the after effect of situation.
Right.
And the other is, I tend to think of it all as Maya, or illusion of the senses,
Right.
versus straight consciousness. In other words, my senses tell me one thing because of my upbringing, because of my history and the people I've met, etc.
Hmm.
And as I unwind the emotional conflict within me, I find that the way I sense things is very different.
Hmm.
The way I interpret things is very different.
Right.
And I find that how I use my mind, in other words, where I put my attention,
Hmm.
starts to create that reality.
Right.
Now, this is pretty standard stuff in the sense that the view that your consciousness follows thought,
Right.
and as your where your thoughts go. But so many of our thoughts have so much conflict in them
Right.
that I wanted to get freer than that.
Right. Something you mentioned about nothing out there but our consciousness, but you said a lot of it's unconscious and you're the after effect. Can you explain that a little? Meaning, are other people doing it to you, or is it your own unconscious mind, your own effect from your own, because you're just not aware of it creating, or how can you just explain that a little
I
more?
Yeah, I feel it's your own conscious mind
Right.
at the subliminal level
Right.
creating it all.
Exactly.
And when you're a little kid,
Yeah.
um, of course you're at the beck and call of the reality you find yourself in. But as you age and get some personal awareness, then it starts to be your own thing. Before that, you're just kind of an after effect.
Wow. So it's really nothing out there so would you say it's really nothing but yourself, nothing but your consciousness. Everything out there is at the source really just
At the
consciousness.
source, it's all consciousness, and it's bigger than just human consciousness in the way most of us are experiencing it,
Right.
because there's the ability to sense it all
Yeah.
and realize that you're at one with it.
Hmm.
And not just as a group of words that we say, oh yes, everything is one, we're all
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
but as a
Experience.
experiential beingness with it.
Right. So what would you group like in terms of consciousness? What about like when people dream or when they're in deep sleep? What are those states? Are those I
Well,
mean, I've always been curious about why do we dream? Why all that? Why do we go in deep sleep?
there's a lot of viewpoints about that.
Yeah.
My take on it is that it's the mind processing in a way, or reworking what has gone on during the day or is most recently on one's mind. And the mind will, as it goes deep into relaxation, which is what sleep is,
Hmm.
it starts to free associate.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people get ahas from their dreams,
Right.
because they're not limited by the linear thought that we're taught in regular school, the rational, logical mind.
Right.
So you can make eureka experiences where everything's just, you can step beyond the norm much more easily.
Right.
So being the dream state to me is free association
Hmm.
from experiences that you've been having, and then you can actually go beyond that
Hmm.
into completely new territory
Wow.
and take it further. So that's where the kind of the out of body stuff happens, the dream work, the
Yeah.
The lucid dreaming, where you can control the dream and experiment in your dream as a conscious effect. Those all, they take practice, but they're all doable,
Hmm.
and it makes for a very interesting life.
Right. One thing I was always curious about, some people may base their life off their dreams. I've seen books written where they think if they dream about something, then it must mean this. Do you give it that much importance, or do you just see like,
No,
hey, maybe it's an emotion I didn't want to experience in the physical, and I maybe triggered myself in the dream state there to kind of process, you know what I'm saying? What would you say?
that would be the logical thought process that people would use. And what
Yeah.
I would do is I would notice how it makes me feel, and I would
Yeah.
go into my feelings and let them unwind.
Yeah.
And then if I found that they had validity for me, I'd go with it. But so much is just somebody else's idea because it came into a book.
Yeah. So they're all ideas.
Yeah, they're just all ideas. They're
They
all
could.
one person's or a series of people's interpretation, not the interpretation.
That's why you see so many different books on it. Some people base their lives on it. Some people just see it as, hey, all right, it's a dream, and like you
Yeah,
say, you just process. If it bothers you, you just process it. You just feel it.
yeah.
All
Or if
right.
it's confusing, or if I think it should have deep
Yeah,
significance. It doesn't need
it
to.
doesn't need to at all.
No.
Yeah, all right. I've that's what I like. That's the way I would definitely feel. Um, another word I mean, we've spoken before, and you've used the word in terms of consciousness, malleable, in terms of the
Yeah.
world. What, I mean, do you have any experiences I mean, how it might
I
be
have a lot of
malleable?
experiences
I
in the
know
world
that.
being malleable.
So how
Um,
could that be? Like some things people think are so set in stone, but really are they malleable to
yeah.
you?
The you see, to me, my personality is based on my belief system.
Yes.
In other words, I am the way I am because I have certain beliefs. And
Yes.
I live my life the way I do because it says within my belief system, this is what I can do. But when
Yes.
I run up against the boundaries of that belief system,
System.
that shows me that, oh, this is as far as I am comfortable at this time. So I'll feel those boundaries and until they dissolve, and then I find I can do other things, and
Wow.
the world changes associated with that. Not just that you'll meet different people, but the people that you have been interacting with, you'll find can do many more things than they let on. You'll find that and that will open you to new boundaries that you can go into
Yeah.
and broaden the scope of who you are and what you're willing to let yourself do as well,
Right.
and in a very positive way. Yeah, I'll give you a simple example.
Okay.
And everything can be refuted just by saying, well, you weren't paying attention or whatever. But
Yeah.
I noticed that a lot of the time when I do a lot of processing of the emotions and
Yes.
change them, and especially if I do a positive statement and unwind that so that I can move into an alternate reality or a different way of living,
Yeah.
um, objects will appear and disappear. So,
Hmm.
for example, I was going to teach a workshop up in the north of Oregon. I live in southern Oregon. And there's this place on the highway that has big flashing lights and slows you down to 50, and the road is very curvy, and they tell you how fast you're going. And I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had much interesting phenomena lately, so I'd been wondering what it might be about, having some cool phenomena to play with.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I are driving up, and we're looking for this area because, you gotta slow down, and there's police there and the whole bit.
Mhm.
And we arrived, we didn't see it anywhere.
Yeah.
The road was comparatively straight. We didn't,
Yeah.
and we arrived. It's about a 5 minute slowdown, maybe 10 minute slowdown. We arrived at our destination 15 minutes early. I said to myself and my wife, I said, they must have straightened the road.
Yeah. And it's not like you tried to explain it after, it just was.
No, it was just like, wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, on the way back, the signs were there.
Yeah. Right.
So the phenomena was, you want an experience? Here's an experience to show you how flexible reality can be.
Yeah. And it's totally obvious. Like there's things I mean, your past, you've had a lot. You used to, one of the modalities, or even with the Wonder Method, you've been able to like move bones
Oh yeah,
into
that's
place. That's,
very
I
simple.
mean, that's very simple. Like
It
really, really
surprises me how
things.
simple it is.
Yeah, like bones will move in place, and you can go and actually take an X-ray of it, and yeah, I mean,
Yep.
see it. It's all documented. But I noticed with you, you've done. I mean, things have moved, roads. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Malleable in that sense. How limit
Oh
is it?
yeah.
Limitless. It's limitless.
You can align structure, you can
Yeah.
rebuild structure, you can speed structure up
All right.
as far as healing goes. You can unwind the emotions that made you fall down to start with, that hurt yourself or whatever, um,
Yeah.
and on and on. It makes for a very fluid way to live instead of getting caught and stuck in your belief systems, what I call the drama of life.
Would you say that really the only thing is, say if somebody has this long held belief like, oh, this is the way it is that belief why it's the way it is for that massive group of people?
Yes, because they will arrange their world so that
Ma-
their their experiences reinforce it.
Right. So how is the way out of that? Like what to finally be
What
free of that? What would
you
you
would
say
feel the feeling
of how it feels?
of how it feels that you appear to be limited. I always use the word appear because again,
Right.
Maya, illusion of the senses.
Right.
Your consciousness has been focused in one direction, and so you've actually tuned your senses to work that way.
Right. And what you say here, I mean, if people ever look back throughout history, all these things you've said is it aligns with what everybody has said when in terms of Maya. It's just you put it in a more sense for somebody like in the Western world to understand, I found, because I mean, read a lot from a lot of these, I mean, even East Indian, like that book you said, Masters of the, I forget what it was called, but
Far
yeah,
East.
the Far East, similar things, and you just seem to put it so simple, um, for the Western world. So I really appreciate that.
Oh,
Um,
it's part
so
of the joy of doing the game, you know?
yeah, well, that's what I wanted to get at is sometimes people, why will they'll complicate the whole thing? I mean, why is it so, is it simple to you? Or is it really simple? Or why the complications?
The complications to me are because the mind, they kind of got mental diarrhea.
Yeah,
Their mind is going and they want to fill it with something. And they want to explain their world in rational terms. And they'll say, well, look, if we do this, this, and you hold your tongue just right,
yeah,
everything will work. Except,
yes,
of course, it doesn't, not every time.
yeah,
Because if it was all that straightforward and simple, we'd all be doing one thing.
right,
And no, that's not the case.
yes.
What appeals to one person doesn't necessarily appeal to another one. But regardless, they make it complex because they want to keep the game going.
They want to stay stuck in it almost.
People enjoy drama.
Yeah,
Oh man, give me drama. I love drama. I want the world. I want this. I want that.
yeah,
That was the same as the part of the highway missing, It's
yeah,
phenomena. It's
right.
fun, but it's just a game.
So no, sometimes, so I guess in a sense that like the people that are holding a belief system and staying caught in it, I guess a way is you gotta kind of gotta have a desire to want to be free of it too, as well.
You have to be willing to take a step.
Yeah, you have to be willing to have that. Some people, I mean, some, like you said, enjoy that drama. They don't want to come out of it. They don't want it to be different.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine. I mean, you want your game to be interesting, so you want diversity.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, as you become more free, as you become more awake, I call it.
yeah.
Some people would call it enlightened. I just think of it as shedding the drama more and more.
Hmm.
You see everybody playing their game, and you go, "Wow, they look like they're having fun," except when
Yeah,
they're not. And the highs and the lows and all that. But as you wipe that away by unwinding the need for the drama,
hmm.
it gets blissful.
And you just kind of step back, right? And just kind of,
Yeah, you just are.
you just are,
Yeah,
you're kind of
and
not involved as much. Yeah,
you're not caught in the drama.
yeah, you're not caught. Yeah, that's the
And
word.
so because of that, you just are in a very positive sense.
Yeah.
Do things still happen? Sure, life is an ongoing process.
Right. And I've never seen a process like, yeah, I've tried, like you said, I've tried the meditations, but to actually get to that point, I mean, I've never seen anything like this method. Yeah, it takes some practice, and I mean, you can't just sit there and do nothing. I mean, you got to kind of
Well,
feel, and it takes a little bit of practice, but for me it just unwinds for you. So
yes,
I've
exactly.
never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I'm constantly amazed.
Yeah. And it just doesn't work on me. Like I've helped other people as well with it, and I mean, it's weird, but I mean, if you're willing, everybody can do this process, I feel.
That's right. Anybody that's willing to take the moment to feel, especially stuff that may be a little scary to let themselves feel,
Hmm.
but that's where the most reward is, where the biggest blocks are. Unwinding the big blocks gives you more reward.
Yeah. Well, did you have any, I mean, anything more on consciousness on what you'd, I mean, anything
We could
else?
go on and on
I
forever.
know he could. Any other like really important tidbits that you could say on what consciousness is and what the world is that you would want me to know or want anybody else to know?
That life is can be very fun.
Hmm.
And so, as you unwind the limitations to your personality's viewpoints and
Yeah.
your belief system, the consciousness expands,
Right.
the mind quiets, the mind body have integration. When the separateness leaves, consciousness expands.
Yeah.
A sense of openness is involved with just about everything.
Right.
And the only time it's not is when you're resisting something.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I thank you for that talk. That was something else. I really appreciate that.
Oh,
And
my pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
yeah. And till next time.
All right. Look forward to it.
All right. Bye,
Thanks,
Alan.
Anthony.
Thank you. Bye.